All right, let's talk about the core of this team because I think there might be a difference of opinion here. We'll see. Let's go through some of the big name players on this team and you tell me if they are a part of the core. And let's define core real quick. How would you define core of a team?
I would say bona fide starters that are kind of I would say the leaders as well as the building blocks of the future. So this is the foundation of the team, I would say.
Okay. So would you also say that would entail having these guys for the next few years, not just like a 1-year deal? Like you're expecting
Yeah.
3-4
I mean,
years out of these guys?
I would say in a perfect world, if money wasn't an issue, right? These are the guys that you're keeping for, as long as possible.
Okay. So let's start with some of the older guys and let's figure out if we're on the same page here.
How about we just start with each side of the ball, who we think is the core, and then ultimately I want to talk about who you feel like, because like ultimately, let's say they're going to restructure contracts. Let's talk about who you kick the can down the line for, or who you pay the bill right away. Does that make sense?
I like it. No, that's totally fine. Okay, let's start with offense. Who would you say is the core on this offense? And I'll tell you if I agree or disagree.
Debo.
Okay.
Ayuk.
Ayuk, I agree with.
Trent.
Disagree.
Banks.
Can I tell you why I disagree with Trent Williams?
Sure.
Because I feel like he's got 1, maybe 2 years left in him.
So I think you're going into the second part of the question.
Okay.
Right. So the first part is just who are the players that you want on this team, regardless of money. Okay. Right. So you're thinking about, down the line, all that kind of stuff. I'm talking about like the guys you would keep based off of not you have to make a decision about them. These are just the guys that are the best at the position on the team kind of thing.
Okay. All right. Okay. That's fair. Let's go.
So, because at the second part, some of these guys, I'm also going to say, hey, we should let go of them in the 2 years or so, right? So we're going to rank who's most important, right? So Debo, Ayuk, Trent, Aaron Banks, CMC, Kittle, Juice, and I would say Purdy are the 8 that I would pick on the offense side.
Okay. Do you want to get to part 2 now, or you want to go to defense first?
Let's do defense, and then let's go, because it's going to be a holistic thing, right?
Okay,
so
let's go.
I would say Huff, Fred Warner, obviously, Greenlaw, Bosa, and Armstead would probably fall under that, and Hargrave.
Okay. What about Charvarius Ward? Okay.
Mooney Ward, Demo would be the 8 there. So I'm saying there's 16 players that out of the 22 starting players that the 49ers should have locked down as bona fide starters ready to go.
Okay. All right. Let's get into the second part. Go ahead and run this. I want to see. All right.
All right. So the guys that I'm letting walk. So ultimately, to me, this year is fine. 2025 is the year they got to make some decisions, but some of the finagling of money is going to be dependent on that. So I'm not I'm not restructuring Armstead. I'm paying his bill, letting him walk.
Okay, agree.
I'm not restructuring Juszczyk. I'm either paying his bill now or cutting him, or unless he's willing to come back at like the minimum or a really cheap kind of deal is how I'm bringing him back.
Okay.
The guys that I would restructure, let's do that.
Okay.
CMC.
Okay, I wouldn't.
Okay. Ayuk, extend. He's the guy I keep.
Yep.
Bosa.
Okay.
Warner.
Okay.
And Kittle.
I would not on Kittle either.
Can I tell you why Kittle?
Yeah.
So I just think that Kittle is just so much better than 98% of the tight ends that are there. And even if he drops off a little bit, Jesse, he's still going to be better than 80% of the tight ends there. And ultimately, I think because of his unique abilities, he buys you time to find somebody to replace him at that position, where other positions, I don't think we have time. But I don't think that we have time to replace Armstead. I don't think we have time to replace a juice. I don't think we have time to replace some of these other positions. So that's why I don't mind keeping Kittle on the roster, because even a lesser Kittle is still better than most of the tight ends you're going to get through the draft or even in free agency.
Okay. I mean, I don't necessarily disagree with you there. It's going to be very hard. I mean, he's going to be almost impossible to replace. Trent Williams, CMC, all these guys. But to me, I just feel like, first of all, Kittle's about to be 31. He plays a physical brand of football. I'm actually shocked that I don't think he missed a game this year. That's the first time in a while that's happened, which is awesome. And I hope that he's able to play through this year. My biggest thing is I want the flexibility on Kittle. Not that I would necessarily get rid of him right after this year or next or whatever, but I want the flexibility of being able to get rid of him if I can, versus freeing up money to maneuver and do what I need to do this offseason, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I strongly disagree about that. But I understand where you're coming from. I just disagree.
Because if I if I kick the can down the road on Kittle, I'm guaranteeing that I have to keep him for 2 more years before I can do anything with him. So I've got to have him this year. I've got to have him next year before I can even think of doing anything. And I'm still going to take a cap hit, versus let it go and then figure it out from there. Maybe I can do a bunch of 1-year deals if I feel comfortable, but I want the flexibility. CMC is the same way. CMC is phenomenal. Best running back in the game. But he's also about to be 28 years old. And running backs at 28 often start to fall off a bit, especially coming off as many touches as he had this last year. That is a bit worrisome. So I'm not saying he's going to have a major drop off this year, but if I kick the can down the road, I'm in the same situation as I am with Kittle, where I'm locked into him for the next 2 years and have no wiggle room whatsoever. If either of these guys have an injury, which wouldn't be that shocking at the age or mileage that they are at, I'm stuck no matter what, footing that bill. So for me, I want the cap flexibility for guys that are approaching the tail end of their career, versus guys like Warner, Young, Bosa, Young, Ayuk, obviously. Debo's actually the same way as Kittle and CMC for me. I don't want the way that he plays and the way we've seen this decline in his overall play. I'm straight on extending him and kicking the can down the road. Armstead, I'm not doing it. Hargrave, I'm not doing it. Mooney, I might consider, but they did just do it last year, and he's a corner, much like running backs. As they get to 28, 29, sometimes they can slow down. So there's not a lot of guys that I would mess around with, really. There's not a lot of guys that I would be
there are guys that you're going to have to, because ultimately that's just a part of the game, right? You can't you can't not, right? Because you're going to need money to be able to bring in talent. So out of those guys, let's see, you have to make a hard decision, because obviously it'd be easy. Like Warner, easy. Bosa, easy. To me, Ayuk, easy. But do those 3 always give you enough? I don't know. Let's say you need a 4th contract that you need to free up. So out of, let's say, the 2 that I mentioned, out of Kittle and CMC, which one would you restructure if you needed that money?
Kittle, I guess. Not a fan. I'm really not a fan of that.
I just think he's the solution at that. I understand you saying the flexibility, but the way I look at it, Jesse, is like, who is a player that we would pick over anybody else at that position? Like, is that guy still going to be the person we want as a starter? And if the answer is yes to that, then you might as well move his money around, because you're not gonna need the flexibility on him, because ultimately he's going to be the guy you want at that position. I think Kittle is that guy, which is why I don't mind not needing that flexibility on him.